Welcome to Elevate Your Mind, your number one podcast for peak performance strategies that will enhance your mindset, develop your emotional skill set, and maybe, just maybe, be the catalyst to create positive forward momentum in your life. Here's what's to come from today's pod.
This body and mind is wired to make you survive. The rent that you pay for having this for free is that it is your job to make you thrive. Boom, and we are live. Guys, welcome back to the podcast. Let's dive straight in. The 3 steps to overcoming debilitating fear. Debilitating fear. We've all been there in some way, shape or form where that fear consumes us and we don't feel like we can do anything with it. Well, look no further. And my guess is, if you are here with me listening to this, you have already watched my YouTube training on how to overcome and eliminate fear. Now, this is the part of that particular training where we really break it down, the 3 steps. And if you haven't watched that yet, I do recommend that you potentially press pause on this podcast and you go and listen and watch that on YouTube first, eliminating the fear barrier, and then come back to this, because during that particular training, you will have seen me talk about these 3 steps, but this is the point where I'm going to really go into detail with it for you. Break down each of those 3 steps so you know exactly what we need to do to put ourselves in that place. Because as you all know now, the 3 steps to overcoming debilitating fear is number 1, creating a high energy empowered state. No lasting change in our life ever comes from a low, mediocre, no energy, no vibrancy, no strength in my body type state. I don't care if it's, do you want to leave to go to do a food shop, or if you want to leave a relationship or buy a new house, there needs to be a certain energy and vibrancy to your being. That was step 1. Step 2 was decide on what's right and what's true. That's where we're going to spend most of today, in discussing that particular step there. Because once you can decide on what's right and what's true, then you can move to step 3, and that is act in that moment. Not half hour later, not an hour later, not diet starts Monday, in that moment. And so we're going to break each of those down for you today, and so you have a very clear understanding on the 3 steps to overcoming debilitating fear. Sound good to you? Sounds brilliant to me. If you haven't already, make sure you're following, make sure you're subscribing on different platforms, on YouTube, on Instagram, wherever you follow, because I've got so much content coming your way over these next couple of days, weeks and months. As you have already seen in the first couple of weeks here of 2025, I've got so much coming your way and you are not going to want to miss out. So when it comes to this debilitating fear, here's the things that we need to know. Step 1, create a high empowered emotional state. Look, I said it a moment ago. It's probably the thing that I talk about most. Without state, we're nothing. Without state, we are nothing, guys. And guess what? It doesn't take anything to create that. No skill, no ability, no one who's, oh, I can do this, but I can't. No, state is available to everyone. What your state is how you use your body. The thing that you're choosing to focus on, the words that you are using, all the things that you've got by this gift of God. Yeah, all of those things that you got for free, by the way, no charge, you got them for free. That's all we need to use to our advantage. Like I always say to my clients, you were given this body and mind for free. You were given this for free. There was no charge for any of this. This body and mind is wired to make you survive. The rent that you pay for having this for free is that it is your job to make you thrive. It is that simple. You've got all of this for absolute free. The least you can do is use it to your advantage. Use your state in a way that feels empowering, a posture, a strength to your being that feels empowering. When you're focusing on something, go and focus on the love that you can give, on the confidence that you can bring to a situation, on the drive, on the energy that you can influence. When you're using your words, don't use them in a loose, timid way. Use them with authority, use them with strength. When you do this, you naturally create a biochemical shift within your being. And when you create that biochemical shift within your being, then you can actually start to have a foundation to want to move into action. When we think about fear and debilitating fear, picture someone who's fearful now. Picture them. What do they look like? They're closed off, maybe biting their fingers, maybe a little bit fidgety, maybe a little bit sweaty, maybe with some tenseness in their face. Yeah, do the opposite of that. Do the opposite of that. Harvard did a wonderful study on this in 2012, Dr. Amy Cuddy, around power postures. And you can find this on YouTube. Watch it. Harvard 2012 study on power postures. Dr. Amy Cuddy. And she spoke about this, and she spoke about how when we can use, in my language, our state to our advantage, you literally create a shift within your body. So much so, and forgive me if I've got the wrong percentage here, but so much so that when you create a shift within your state, you are 33% more likely to take a risk in a certain area. Not in areas of just, gambling. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm taking educated risk in the areas that we want. Let's say like becoming a parent. You're more likely to do that when you're 33% more likely to do that when you're in a high empowered state. Now, whether you're a gambling person or not, to me that sounds like a pretty shrewd move. If I'm going to give myself a 33% chance more of success, I'll give that a go. In any area of my life, of asking that person out on a date, of wanting to drive to that place in the country, of wanting to buy that house, of wanting to make that decision to say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do and enroll on that course, whatever it may be. 33% head start just by using this gift that God gave you. My dad hates this saying, but I'm going to use it. It's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. You would be amazed the amount of people who just allow their state to use them. And when their state uses them, there's absolutely nowhere we can go and nothing that we can do from that place. Use your state. Don't allow your state to use you. Because when you use it in a high empowered way, you create a bit more energy, a bit more vibrancy. If any of you have got kids, watch them, by the way. They're the masters of state. The masters of state. See the way they turbocharge around and use their energy in their body. I have this saying. People don't slow down because they get old. People slow down so then they get old. Because if you kept a vibrancy and an energy to your being simply from your state, and you did that from the use of your posturing, the use of your focus on what you can influence, on the use of how you use your words. I don't care what age it says on a piece of paper. You're going to feel as young as a spring chicken. I don't even know if that's a saying, but apparently it is on this podcast. You're going to feel incredibly vibrant in your life. I know 20-year-olds who are 80, and I know 80-year-olds who are 20. And you know what I mean by that. The way that they use their state. That is always the foundational step. State comes first, and you'll see many podcasts that I've done and many YouTube trainings on that. Because once you have got that in place, the 3 steps to overcoming debilitating fear. First of all, you've given yourself a 33% head start just by mastering your state. The second step after that, following through on what's true and what's right. Notice, I didn't say follow through on what's comfortable and what's easy. I said follow through on what's true and what's right. I genuinely believe that we all know at the level of our heart, not the feeble and fickle thoughts and feelings of our head, what is right and what is true. We know what we want. But we conjure up all of these stories, all of these reasons, all of these limiting beliefs that we put in the way. No. Radical transparency with ourselves. What is it that I want to do? And if I'm fearing that type of area, I have it on my wall here. You can't see, but in my desk, I have a wall here that I have some quotes on. One of those is, I can, I must, I will. I can, I must, I will. People's biggest mistake at times is they see me and they think, he never deals with fear in his life. It's the biggest load of old tosh I've ever heard. Of course I have fear in my life. Of course I do. I'm a human being. It's wired into our mechanism. Debilitating fear, however, absolutely not. Why? Because when I see fear and I feel fear, I know that that's my sign to step up, to level up, to put myself in a certain state. I can, I must, I will. If I can't, then I must, and I do follow through in that moment, and I'll get to step 3 in a moment. But that is the point of where we put ourselves in a place on, not on what's a negotiation or what I believe would be a fair truce or what, no. What's true and what's right, and that's for no one else to tell you but you. But in your mind, you know what's right and what's true. You see, I've kidded myself beyond belief throughout the years. I know when I think that, no one will really tell, but that's really what I want, and I try, no, that is what I want. It's not. We all know that. When you're true and right, it feels like you're not pushed to do something, you feel pulled, you feel compelled towards that particular area, to move into action, to level up, to step up, do whatever it may be. You need to focus on what's true and what's right in a certain state and hold that vision, hold that focus. This is what I'm doing. I'm not wavering from this. If my goal is to go, driving somewhere, if my goal is to let's say, simplify it, get to the supermarket because I haven't left the house in a certain while. If my goal is to make £1 million, drastic differences there. I don't start negotiating with myself and say, okay, I'll just go for a little drive just to the end of my road and back. Or then, you know what, I won't go to the supermarket, I'll go to the corner shop. Or I didn't quite, not £1 million, that's a bit fearing. Maybe I'll say £500,000. Look, there's something there for everyone. But as soon as you start to negotiate on that, as soon as you create that little essence of openness in your mind, fear swallows in, fear grabs it. As soon as you open your mind to negotiation in that way, and for those of you who have worked with me, hear me on this, you remember the 2 parts of your mind and the 2 ways you negotiate, you communicate with both parts of your mind. I go into detail with this on my program. Some of you would have also heard this on my podcast. When I talk about the 2 parts of your mind, the moment you go into negotiation here, fear starts to creep in. And when fear gets its little slimy little foot in the door, it has a way of trying to grab hold. This is how you take control. First of all, it's on the state. Then second of all, you don't budge on what's true and what's right within you. No one else. Who's anyone else to tell you how you should or shouldn't behave? This is about you, for you, being true to you and what you need to deliver. Because when you do that, you hold a vision, you hold a truth in your mind, you hold a truth in your heart, more importantly, that this is what I'm going to follow through on. This is how I'm going to level up. This is how I'm going to step up. This is how I'm going to provide and be strong and driven in this particular area. I don't start negotiating. The moment you start negotiating, fear gets its little slimy, grimy little foot in that door. Then all of a sudden, then we're in a little bit of a back and forth. If you're talking about debilitating fear here, there is zero room for negotiation. Zero. You need to be your pillar of certainty every single time. Use it. We all feel a little bit of trepidation. We all feel a little bit of uncertainty about new situations. Of course we do. I feel it most days because I take certain risks in my life that are new every single day. It's also, by the way, where the true essence of fulfillment and purpose and passion in life is, but that'll be for another day. But you see, I feel that most days in my life, but I use that energy. I use that to really fuel a higher state within me to still not waver on my goal. I don't feel it and then go, oh, it's a sign. This is what people come out with this thing. It's a sign that I shouldn't. No, you're the sign that you shouldn't because you're telling yourself you shouldn't. Don't give me all this sign nonsense. No, you're telling yourself you shouldn't, so you don't. That is the simplicity of it. Because otherwise it could be, this is a sign for me to step up. This is a sign that obviously I haven't crushed this area yet, so I need to crush this area. This is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to step up. This is how I'm going to deliver. That's what we can use it if we're going to use it for a sign. And so ultimately it's about what's true and what's right in this manner. That is step 2. Once you're in state, you follow through on what's true and what's right, and you don't negotiate on that. Because once you've done that, we move into step 3. And you'll be amazed at the amount of people who don't follow through on step 3. They might be in a great state, they might know what's true and what's right, and then they say, diet starts Monday, or next week I'll make that call. And it's like, no, that just kills your momentum. It kills progress. It allows fear to get its slimy little grimy foot in the door and start to expand. The moment you move into action, you kill all fear. You kill fear the moment you move into action. So step 3 is you act in the moment. In the moment. You know, people get themselves into a great state. It'll be clear, it'll be concise in their mind, and they'll get to the moment and they'll say, yeah, but maybe I should just wait and see. Wait and see? Wait and see for what? The time is now. The best time was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. That's an old Chinese proverb. You see, when it comes to this type of nature, we have to understand that action negates all fear. The moment you move into action, fear and action, I beg your pardon, they cannot live in the same household. They cannot. Why? Because once you move into action, you get results. There's nothing to be fearful of. Most people, they give themselves far too long thinking time beforehand to actually get themselves to move into action. Like I say, they'll have the momentum, they'll have the moment, it'll be fresh in their mind, they'll know what's right. Oh, but I don't make decisions. Or, oh, I need to speak with my partner. Or, oh, I need to just check to see what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. It's like, no. Once it's true and right, you act in that moment. One of my favourite sayings is you burn the boats to take the island. You absolutely commit, decide, act on something that's going to move you in the direction of where you want to go. Because the moment you do that, and those of you who listen to that particular YouTube training, you'll know what I mean by decide, commit and act. Well, the moment you do that, you break through any debilitating fear barrier. You break through it. And the moment you do that, you create new possibilities and opportunities in your life. The moment you negotiate, the moment you sit there and go, oh, but what if? That slimy, grimy foot of fear, that can wedge its foot in the door, and then it's a sticky one to try and kick it back out again. This is the formula, guys. This is the formula. Put yourself in a high, empowered, energized state. Decide on what's true and what's right to you personally. And then in that moment, act. Make that call. Send that message. Book that meeting. Drive that car. Book that course. Whatever it may be to you. Do something in that moment that moves you into action, because before you know it, it's like a snowball going down a hill. You gather momentum. You gather speed. You gather this rate of acceleration within your being, where before you know it, you're moving into action. Debilitating fear and I keep saying anxiety. Debilitating fear and action cannot live in the same household. It cannot. But if you choose to do this process in a separate order, or you try to cut corners, you will wind up short. I just want that to be very clear. It is a very succinct process. Step 1 is the state. Step 2 is what's true and what's right and what's real to me. Step 3 is action. Why doesn't exposure therapy work? Because exposure therapy is just do the action without being in a certain state, or potentially what's true. Why do most people not achieve the things that they want? Because they might get themselves into a certain state, they might know what's true and real, but they never actually move into action. Why do people have good days and bad days? Because they have smatterings of what's true and what's right, and they're in certain states depending on what the weather's saying, but oh God, they don't actually know the formula. Debilitating fear lives in an environment of a low state, not being clear on what you want, and then no action. That is where debilitating fear lives. If you are listening to this, if you are watching this on YouTube, wherever you are with me now, Think about the things that you are incredibly fearful of. I guarantee you fit one of, or if not, probably all three of those boxes. A low state, you're not clear on what you want, and you don't move into action in that way. Because the type of action that we take is decisive, it's true. Because when you're in that state, you take decisive action. When you're down here, and you're here, and you even, I've got mental willpower though, Matt, so I do it, so I do make myself do it. No. I know some of you listening to this, you've got incredible willpower. Willpower breaks. Willpower gets tired. Willpower eventually cracks. What we want is like an emotional pull to want to move into action in that area. That comes from a certain state that we are in, and then after that, it moves into the action of being incredibly clear and doing it in that moment. I've got absolute copious amounts of stories where I've worked with people around this. I worked with someone last year and she hadn't been driving on the motorway in ages. And I went to go and see her. She hadn't driven on the motorway in 4 years. She'd only started driving her car again 6 months prior. And she was having a bit of trouble driving on the motorway. And so I went to go and see her in person. She had absolutely debilitating fear around this. I went to go and see her in person. And when I went to go and see her in person, she picked me up from the train station. I remember this because I had this planned out in my head. And when I got in the car, she was like, "Oh, hello, how are you?" Yeah, all the niceties. And then I started just making a few light jokes. What am I doing? Increasing the vibrancy of her state. And I was like, "So, yeah, thanks for dragging me up here and making a few jokes." I was like, "What's your plans then today?" She was like, "Oh, be good to get driving again, be good to doing this, good to doing that." And I started playing with some more jokes and getting her vibrancy up again. And I was like, "Oh, so why is that important to you?" She was like, "Oh, I need to do this, I need to do that," getting clear on what she wants and doing this. And as we was driving along, I was watching the signs and I went, "Okay, cool." I went, "Do a quick left here." She went, "What?" I went, "Do a left." What was the left? Onto the motorway. She was like, and I said, "No, come on, let's go. And we went down and we drove and she was like, "Oh God, but Matt, I'm not sure." I was like, "Stay in state." And we started doing this little vibe and song and everything else. She drove 75 miles on the motorway, 75 miles on the motorway when she hadn't driven on the motorway in 4 years prior and just 6 months before had only just started driving her car again. How? Because when you know how to dance with debilitating fear, you know how to use it to your advantage. When you know how to dance with debilitating fear, you know how to actually use it as an energy and a force for good. Most people fear fear. When they say they're fearing the fear of, let's say, anxiety, all they're saying is that, I'm in a bad state about it, I'm not clear on what I want, and I'm not moving into any action of it. That's why I've got fear. If you did the opposite, you'll also be driving 75 miles on the motorway or whatever your equivalent is. These 3 steps will always break you out of debilitating fear in your life. It is simply a case of what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Because the moment you try to negotiate, the moment you try to, but maybe I should wait, maybe I should become more certain, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Seriously. Like, the moment you do that, fear gets its grimy foot in the door. Action, who was in control of the household, now is starting to doubt its role in the house, and fear starts to squeeze its way in and then tries to have a say, and all of a sudden now we've got a battle in the household. If action takes control, it owns that household. Fear cannot live there. They can't live in the same environment together. But the action that we need to take needs to be on a foundation of step 1 and 2. This will work 10 times out of 10. I don't care what your fears are. I deal with fears pretty much every day of my life. Now, not debilitating fear, but I take a lot of risk in my life in many different areas. Those of you listening to this, I'm currently training to swim the English Channel. Dover to Calais. 40 odd kilometres across the English Channel. I have no swimming background. Is there a part of me that's a little bit fearful? Do you know what? I'll be honest, yeah, it is. But it excites me. Those of you watching me on YouTube now, you can see as I'm saying this, it becomes a dance for me. It becomes something where I can use this energy now to call on a higher part of myself to go and activate higher parts of me that are going to go and achieve this. That actually excites me. That actually energizes me. That actually uplifts me. I like that. Because now I use fear to my advantage. And you can do the same. You will become unstoppable in this area. Unstoppable. But it follows these 3 steps, and they are steps: state, clarity, action. That's how we move past debilitating fear every single time. And so I'm going to leave you with this. Don't let this be another nice learning. Don't let this be a nice learning. Those of you who watched my YouTube training that I released, you know what I mean by the learning zone. Don't let this be a nice learning. If you want to move past the fear barrier now, what's it going to be? What's it going to do? Naturally, watching this or listening this through your speakers right now, you're in a certain state. You're probably, you know what's right and you know what's true. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to lose momentum again, or are you going to commit to action now? Because the moment you do this now, the moment I end this podcast, you have an opportunity here to move past debilitating fear. That option is yours. Guys, it is time to elevate your mind. Take care.